Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews. If you enjoy this review, make sure you hit that like and also the subscribe button, and if you have any opinions at all that you would like to share, leave them down in the comment section. Lil Tecca, Virgo World. Lil Tecca is an American rapper, singer, multi-platinum artist at the age of 16. That was with the release of his international smash hit Ransom, which I loved, still do. It's youthful, it's fun, it's quirky, doesn't seem like it's taking itself all that seriously. That single was on his debut commercial mixtape We Love You Tecca, which I covered. Thought it was just okay, couple of decent tracks, but it was pretty full at 16 songs plus a remix. Couple of one-off singles later, one of which I also covered, we're here with his official full-length debut album, Virgo World. It seems Tecca's album forming technique has barely changed, as this is even longer than his debut mixtape, 19 tracks, a surprisingly brief 46 minutes. How does this album stand up to his mixtape? Let's find out as I review it track by track. We'll start with the singles, with there being 3 of them. The first one being the closer, Out of Love, featuring production group Internet Money, is actually pretty damn solid, featuring this sentimental piano playing and Tecca singing on the opening moments. Then the skittering trap drum kicks in, morphing Tecca's flow instantaneously into this immaculate, rather quick flow that varies up a couple times throughout the tune. It's a perfect length and structure for a track like this. It doesn't feel too long or too short, even with Tecca switching up his register a bit for the final chorus, almost adding a bit of emotion to the track. Definitely a surprising first single. Good song. The second single, Royal Rumble, is probably the least interesting out of the singles. That mainly shows in the beat. Heavy bass, trap drum, some hey scattered throughout the track to try to build hype, but they are pretty drowned out by everything else, so it has little impact. I didn't even notice them on the first listen, and Tecca also leaves a lot to be desired here. He gets offbeat a couple times here and there, some a bit more drastic than others, but his flow's pretty okay otherwise, as he sings about being the top, the king, like the WWE Royal Rumble, squashing the competitors. Unfortunately, there's little memorable about the song. I can do without it. And the third and final single, the album opener Our Time, embraces most of the positive aspects of Tecca's music. The beat is fun, peppy with its synths that sound like a pitched xylophone. Tecca's flow is pretty solid as well, maybe a little bit slow in my opinion. There could have been a bit more life present in his vocals as well. It really serves a lot more as an introduction than it does its own full track. The tune barely cracks a minute and 30 seconds, breezes by in the blink of an eye, which I'm kinda thankful it did. I don't think I could have continued it for 3 minutes. It's fine. Take it or leave it. Now for the rest of the tracks. Actin Up packs a lively punch from the start, with Tecca's voice seeming like it's pushed pretty far to the front of the mix, but that feeling goes away rather quickly. The instrumental isn't the most interesting, just some standard stuff, ticking trap drum, deep bass, and Tecca's flow being pretty consistent. Much like the previous track, it's also pretty short, not even reaching 2 minutes, but I think I enjoy the previous track more than this one. That one had a more prominent, exciting beat, kind of a better flow too. This one's much more of a pass. When You Down, featuring Polo G and Lil Durk, features a nice guitar plucking and piano as the melody. All 3 MCs do really well on this track, Tecca probably being the weakest link as he mainly handles the chorus, but also takes verse 1 and his voice sticks out in the worst way over this beat. His signature youthful nasally cadence. Durk takes second verse, keeps a stagnant flow, but it works well over this beat, and Polo G on third verse is probably the star of the track, not only with the most gripping performance, but best lyrics too, rapping about death being so normal on his side of town, and how much it affected his emotional and mental state. This is not a bad song, I quite enjoy it. Back It Up may just be one of the most mundane tracks on this entire record. Tecca's whole gimmick was that he was a fun rapper, perky production, something to bounce to, and this track is not it. It's following the whole trend of the moody trap scene, which completely kills the enjoyment that would have come in Tecca's music otherwise. No quirky synths, just Tecca rapping about this girl and how she backs it up. Very standard stuff. The best part of the track comes in Tecca's flow, which is solid. He even gets to one of his fastest flows, which I do appreciate, but otherwise I genuinely cannot stand the song. It's boring. Hard pass. Chemistry thankfully returns to a good formula. It's definitely not top tier, but after the monstrosity that was Back It Up, I'll take what I can get. The silly, almost childish synths are always welcome, and the melody with the bass thumps really accents Tecca's more melodic flow on the track. Speaking of his flow, it's also pretty varied and changes it up fairly often, turning the track into a pretty solid vibe all around. Lyrically, it's about how him and this girl have this chemistry together and how that totally means she wants him. I still like the track. It's good. Foreign featuring Nav is surprising in how not bad it is. It's kinda shocking how much vocal chemistry Tecca and Nav actually have. They both rap in a nasally, slightly robotic tone that isn't as annoying as it may sound. They blend in rather effectively over the string-backed instrumental. It's more of a bop than it really has any right to be. I honestly think it could have been slightly longer than the 2 minutes 14 seconds it is. Lyrically, it's about how they have a bunch of foreign women. I mean, just normal stuff, but this slaps. Selection featuring Skrillex and DJ Scheme isn't as extreme as I expected with the Skrillex moniker. In fact, this is probably the most truly Tecca beat on this entire album. The bouncy synths have much more of a front row seat than the bass or even the trap percussion. It's a very lively tune with Tecca sticking to a more melodic singing style, which really shows in the chorus. I really don't like how short the track is, though. This could have easily been 3 minutes and been a highlight of Tecca's career, but here it almost kind of seems like a demo or an interlude with how different it is. And that's such a shame because this track deserves so much more than that. Great song, absolutely worth a listen. Take 10 kind of sits right on that fine line between pretty good and boring. The instrumental is the only part that creates that line in the first place, which has this synth passage peeking out in the background, but aside from that, it isn't really that engaging. The bass and trap drums are mundane, sleepy almost, and Tecca is exceptionally lifeless sounding on the track, really killing any hype the tune might have had. Lyrically, he covers the whole spectrum, but tries to have the central focus about forever love, trust and relationship building, but also how his gang carries guns, he's got money in bands, which, coming from the dead tone of Tecca's voice, just sounds really forced. Meh, I'd rather skip this one. Dolly featuring Lil Uzi Vert became the biggest hit this album spawned, and it's okay. The instrumental definitely seems like a lot more curated for Uzi than Tecca. When Tecca gets into his higher register of rapping, it feels kinda awkward, but he still has a fairly decent flow, and Uzi's flow is pretty impeccable. Even though he doesn't switch it up at all, and over this deeper, bassy, ominous instrumental, he sounds right at home, easily the best part of the track. But he probably could have had a longer verse in my opinion. It's not a bad track at all, I just feel like the song should be a bit more interesting considering the names. Insecurities brings us right back to some great music. This is a pure banger of a track. The one thing that really sells this one for me is the melody. This hook is infectious and catchy, probably one of the best on the entire project. The instrumental is enjoyable as well, the bubbly synths, the bass pounds, it really all plays to Tecca's strengths. Lyrically, it's just about how he doesn't care about any of his insecurities. He's in love with this girl, and he doesn't want to be like any of those fake guys, which is surprisingly projected throughout the tune. Yeah, great song. Give this one a listen. TikTok seems like it tries to be this emotional rap banger, but it kind of falls on its face a little bit. The piano is the only thing that even attempts to portray that emotion, which is fairly prominent, but behind the trap drum it loses a lot of its honesty. Tecca's also kind of underwhelming, where he's basically offbeat for almost the entirety of the track, really obviously when that drum kicks in. Lyrically, it's pretty standard, drip, money, women, gang. Seems to have a bit more of a focus on time in particular, but that's a very brief focus. Meh, I can do without this one. Miss Me just kinda seems like a lesser version of most of the popular tracks on this record. The instrumental is nice, the synths feel a little bit cloudier than the typical stuff on this album. Tecca's flow is pretty good as well. It's almost on the level of Insecurities, but the chorus just feels really slow and drab. There could have been a lot more life thrown into this track in the vocals alone. I suppose, regardless, it is a pretty okay vibe, but another big complaint for me is that the track is so short. It barely has any time to form itself and grip the listener before it's just over. And that's a large complaint with quite a few tracks on this album. It's a fine song. I'm kind of split on it. I could take it or leave it. True to the Game featuring Goo Up Rain seems to take my advice from the last track, as there is certainly a lot more life here, mainly in Tecca's delivery and how he really seems to be hyping it up on the hook and the verse. Goo Up just sounds right at home on this track, his heavier delivery providing a nice contrast to Tecca's more nasally vocals. This instrumental is also so much more enthusiastic, with the grand synths in the background making the song seem almost powerful and regal, which I don't mind. Lyrically, the track isn't too deep at all, resorting to a lot of repeated lines a couple times, but I can look past that for how fun the song is. Pretty good tune. Closest to Heaven has an extremely scant instrumental, with very minor synths popping in every now and then, but it's mainly led by a down-tempo skittering drum and bass pounds. It's so dreary in one note, barely feeling like Tecca at all. Speaking of Tecca, his flow is pretty solid, easily the best part of the track, but that's really about it. His tone is sleepy, and these lyrics about this girl who drinks and pops pills getting the closest to heaven by being high, plus other rap tropes as well. Honestly, this is just bad. Very hard pass. Level Up is a track that I'm pretty split on, mainly based on this beat which is just so flat in practically every aspect. The drums pack little impact and the synths have been drained of all their life almost completely. Speaking of the percussion, it has a very clunky rhythm which is more distracting than I think was intended, as even just vibing to the song is kinda difficult. Tecca's flow and vocals are much more robotic here as well, only contributing to the dour mood the track gives off as he raps about how this girl only loved the fake money-hungry side of him, so he had to change or level up. Meh, I can do without this one. Pass. No Answers really seems like it tries to be this intimate confessional track with the piano playing and soft synths being as warm and welcoming as they are. But that's the furthest that comparison could even go. During the verses, the percussion and bass overpower most to all of that emotion, and the song and Tecca's flow is fairly one note all the way throughout. This is probably going to come off as extremely hypocritical, but this track did not need to be 3 minutes long. This would have been fairly okay as a shorter tune, even though I complained that some of the earlier tracks weren't long enough. It's the certain moods that need to be propelled for different lengths, and this could have been cut. Not worth keeping. Pass. And finally, Last Call is a solid way to basically end off the album. The light plucking of the acoustic guitar not only projects the warm feeling 10 times better than the previous song, but also serves up as one of the most solid vibes on the entire tracklist. Tecca's flow is bouncy, exuberant, and the instrumental has a solid groove to it as well. Lyrically, he's rapping about how this is the last call for this girl to hit him up, but he also delves into more standard rap stuff as per usual. Also, the weird reversed instrumental for the last 15 seconds is a little bit bizarre, but besides that, it's a solid tune. Good song. Overall, this Lil Tecca album is crazy inconsistent. 1 second you're listening to a fantastic banger, the next it's just a slogfest. The whole album is a roller coaster of emotions that doesn't leave me satisfied at all. I just wish this could have been trimmed heavily. Maybe even to the 16 of his debut mixtape, but rappers gotta earn those streaming numbers, so more quantity over quality, I guess. I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 on this album. Well guys, hope you enjoyed that review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.